Even.
Oh, I'm glad I'm not going to be seeing the questions. Oh, God. I hope that's not recording.
I think, okay, I think we are live now.
Okay.
But now I have to start talking. Okay.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second last session of the Writer's Block Party. We've made it so far. And today I am joined by good friends and also by people who I followed on Instagram for a while. So we're joined by Madiha Makool, Nazar Rao, and Mariam Kareem. Just a little intro of everyone. Madiha works in the public sector, and her Instagram handle is Maddie's Library, and you all should follow her. She has an excellent page, and her book recommendations are fabulous. Nazuk is a developmental economist, sorry, and her Instagram handle is Portrait of Laundry. Yes, and her Instagram again is just you can get lost in it for days. So again, all three people, by the way, have fantastic feeds, so you all should follow these people. And lastly, we have Mariam Kareem, whose Instagram is the writing room .co, and she teaches creative writing in Lahore and is also written multiple publications. And like most of us, is also currently working on her first novel. So thank you guys for
Working
joining.
on it, yeah.
Yeah, we're all working on.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for joining me today on the party. Thank you for being part of this party. And I think to start things off, we should start with what the discussion is, you guys' Instagram account. So maybe one by one, we can talk about why did you feel the need to start your pages when you did. So what is the push, and yeah, what was like the first post you made, or what was that first thing that got you started? So maybe Mariam, do you want to start with that question?
Okay. So interestingly, I didn't start my Instagram as a Bookstagram account. I started it for the writing room to get the word out there about my workshops and my courses. So I started it around 2016. And Shuru mein, there wasn't much about books or book reviews. And I was just looking at my first post. It had like 5 likes and 0 hashtags. So I really didn't know what I was doing. And it was only until I think last year that I really started reading more. Also, I was going through a reading slump last few years. And then when I started reading more, obviously, I started posting more about the books. And so that's how it started. And then it became less and less about my classes and more about what I was reading and sharing my book reviews. And now it's almost entirely book reviews. So now you could call it like a strictly Bookstagram account.
Perfect. Madiha, do you want to?
Yeah, mine is it or like Mariam's. When I was on Instagram, I think I joined in like 2011 or 12. So I had a personal Instagram account with friends and like people that I know. But my experience of reading hasn't really been pleasant. When like school में होता है कि people call you nerds and you read a lot. So वो वाली चीज like that was filtering in, honestly speaking, into my Instagram as well. So I started one because whenever I posted about books and everything, so not on Instagram itself, but personally, I'd get the feedback, oh, you're showing off, like something negative like that. So I started the books wala Instagram, I think like two and a half years ago maybe, and it was anonymous. It was with some other random name or something, and just so I could write about books that I was reading, and like about stuff that I was thinking. So I think it was anonymous for like 6 months or a year, and then I, went by my own name.
Mhm.
And uske baad se, like, honestly speaking, haven't really been bullied. But and it's not honestly just about books, my Instagram, because I post photographs as well. I like photography. So about traveling, and now it's filtered somewhat into more social issues as well because of my job. The stuff that I see, and anything that I really want to talk about, so might be a little ranty nowadays, but I think it just goes with the territory. So I think it's still evolving. I can't really label mine for now.
And Nazar.
Um,
Yeah.
right. So I think it's pretty much the same for me. It started off, it was a private account back in 2014. I was about to go off for grad school. I was trying to explore कि life वहाँ पे क्या होगी. I'm taking a chance because I was going for my creative writing degree. And so I was nervous. I was like, chalo, theek hai, this is how I will write stories, choti micro stories. This is how I will sort of document what I was feeling, what I was experiencing at that point. And I was pretty nervous. So it was a private account under Nazuk Iftikhar. There was nothing about portraits of longing back then. I started off, and initially it was just photos of the campus or the city of New York, or just trying to understand just generally जो literature लोग पढ़ रहे थे, because it was my first exposure to that. Prior to that, I had only studied literature in A level, and so I was very nervous about that. And I was like, okay, so this is going to be, not that it's going to be a documented journey, it's going to be my own journal in a way. And I'm just going to start off with that. So I started doing that. I started doing little observations. ये देखा है, ये आज वो पढ़ा है. आज हम लोग Michael Cunningham discuss कर रहे थे in class. And so I'm going to relate that to how I was walking. And I thought about Mrs. Dalloway, and I thought about Clarissa in the novel The Hours, or wo sara kuch, and how New York was featured in that. So it started off with that, and then eventually, since I was into photography and I was experimenting with that, I started taking these portraits of people. And while I was doing that, I'm a very socially awkward and a nervous person, so I didn't know कि मैं बोलूँगी क्या इनसे. So I thought कि चलो 2-3 questions prepare करते हैं, hopes, dreams, and इस तरह की चीजें करूँगी. And we started talking, and the first one had this. She was talking about the word exile, and then started talking about missing home and how she had been there for like almost 7 years, and how she couldn't go back. And we sort of started talking about the word longing. And then asked her कि इस word का क्या मतलब है आपकी ज़ुबान में, और आप इससे किस तरह relate करती हैं अपनी identity wise or अपने personal struggles wise. And she started opening up about that. I thought that was a great way to just open up to people and just sort of take in what they were teaching me. So I compiling portraits, and I started working with them. It started off with just simple portraits with a fancy lens, with a fancy camera, and just them talking about the word. And then eventually it started building up. So by now, I believe it's almost been 5 to 6 years since then. So now I've started incorporating books that I really love, poetry that I stumbled on, especially Urdu poetry. I first sort of rediscovered Urdu poetry while I was in New York for a South Asian literature course. So I started incorporating that and how that could sort of like explain me so many feelings much more than the language that I could communicate in. So that's something that I did. I did a little hybrid there, and that's how it sort of evolved, and it's still evolving. So yeah. Thank you.
Well, I was going to keep questions towards the end, but there's one pertinent to what Radiha just talked about, and I think we should maybe get this question out of the way first. So this is from Rees, and she asks you, Radiha, because of the nature of your work, is there stuff you can't talk about or issues that you self-censor on, especially when you're talking about causes?
Yes, there's an entire act governing civil servants because I'm a civil servant. So uske andar, then there are rules from 1973 and 64 that actually list out all the stuff that you're not allowed to talk about. So even when we write, we have to get permission from the government. Ke, acha, like this is what we want to write about. Even then, the army stuff that we know, like secret, state secret stuff that we see on our jobs. So specifically cannot talk about them. So maybe like the stuff that I do write about are social issues that I see generally that are not related to my job. So I have to be really careful.
All right. So going back to our conversation now. So you all talk about what the foundation of your accounts were essentially. How have you noticed yourself change as readers, as people who write even on the side? How have you changed? How has that changed because of your account? Because you're sort of sharing your thoughts in the world. If you have noticed anything, if you've not, that's also perfectly fine. But is there anything you've noticed change about you? and how you interact with those.
And let you guys take,
Wants to go first?
you guys take the lead.
One thing that has, see, the thing about Instagram is, we were just talking about this earlier. It's like there's a flip side to it. So of course, Instagram is amazing in that it's authors and other readers are suddenly very accessible to you. So it's like this really nice community where immediately when you read a book, you tell someone what it's like, and immediately you get feedback from other people. Yes, I loved it. Yes, I love that part also. So in that way, it's really nice. And sometimes I do feel like it adds to your own understanding of the book when you're obviously, because everybody who reads wants to discuss that book that they love with someone else who loved that book. And Instagram makes that easier to do. And then obviously that deepens your feelings about a book, about a poem in Nazar's case, or about anything. So that's all really nice. And the fact that writers are so accessible, well, some of them on Instagram, and some of them, if you write to them, they'll reply to you, which is the most amazing thing for me. It's, if a writer replies to my DM or likes my review, it's just great. So in that way, it's really obviously, because if you're reading a book with the idea that I can write to this writer and tell them what I thought about this book, so that also then it enriches your reading life, obviously. But there's the other side to it also, which is that the more time you spend on Instagram, the less time you're reading and writing, right? So yes, in a way, like Nazo pointed out, she writes these micro stories, which are amazing. I love them. And I'm sure that that keeps you sort of in the writing practice, because even if you're not writing your novel, for example, you're still writing those little snippets, those book reviews to get your writing muscles, like just working out your writing muscles, basically. And in that way, it's great because obviously we don't, there's not so much pressure on writing an Instagram caption as opposed to writing a short story or novel, right? So we're not that self-conscious about it. We just write what we think. And I think that has been good practice for me, to not put so much pressure on myself and to just literally write what I think. And if people respond to that and it resonates with them, that's hugely encouraging for you in your journey as a writer, in your writing practice, even if it's just a little 100-word Instagram caption. But obviously, the other side is that the more you spend on Instagram, the less you're actually reading and writing. And I really feel, for me at least, I can't speak for anyone else, sometimes I do need to be like, okay, Mariam, stop just scrolling on Instagram for no reason. Put your phone away and maybe read another book or write something more long form. So I think there's you have to keep that balance and not just, and keep practicing your long form writing as well, because that's a different set of skills that you need for that. Yes, your writing becomes sharper, but then you lose that sort of slow burn almost, which is like you might sit for an hour or two and write for 15 minutes, but that's what's required in that other form of writing. So I think it's just so many things that Instagram gives you and takes from you also, like your time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Nazuk has decided she will go last.
Yeah. Yeah. So mine, it was like, it wasn't just, writing. It started off with, writing for myself, writing about books, etc. But for me, a lot of it has to do with encouraging other people to read. And telling them that you have to read this book, because that's kind of what I do with my friends as well. And I hope that it translates into actually Instagram itself. But the point is, I've realized that my periods of creativity on Instagram don't actually coincide with my the periods when I'm actually reading a lot. Because and like you feel like writing on Instagram, and then you're like, yeah, which picture should I post? Like literally that's what happens. Or sometimes you have a picture that you want to share and you're like, yeah, what do I write? So I think it's that. And then when I'm really reading, for example, during the lockdowns, I was off from the office for only like a month, from the middle of March till the middle of April. So I had to go back full time 9 to 5 to work since mid April. Usse pehle, like in that month or month and a half, I read I think 14 or 15 books in one go. So, and those did not make it to Instagram. Surprisingly, I did not write reviews for them or actually take creative pictures to post on Instagram. I think they just ended up in my stories. So, and I like the fact that काफी दफा होता है कि when I post books about books that I'm really enthusiastic about, they actually sell out in readings and the last word, and people are messaging me कि, oh, I just bought the last copy, and wo wale, I get that feedback and I love it. So what is there? For example, I think it happened with Hamnet before it won the prize. I think I read it in May and I posted about it, and everyone's like, "Madhya, we can't find it." I myself had to read it on Kindle as well. I didn't get the physical copy. So और थोड़ा सा वो चीज़ भी होती है because when I read books on Kindle, so there aren't really pretty pictures to post on Instagram. So that I think I wrote about that on Instagram as well. But I think it's still ongoing because I don't think my relationship with Instagram is really stable or definable at this. So yeah, it's not in it's not linear in any way.
Yeah, same. Not linear. Great point, guys. I think I'll just add that for me, initially it was not about writing or reading specifically. It was just documenting, in a way, a journal, but with more sort of censored thoughts, not taking too much pressure of anything, writing tariqe se, yeah, proper sentences. It was just putting things out there, not really making sense of anything outside of it. I don't even know how to explain this. Well, for me, I think initially it was just throw everything in that you want to understand and the things that you love. And I realized over the years that I have so many fears and insecurities about how I view myself, how I sort of think others view me. And with that, the only thing that keeps me going afloat in a way. This is before I was even diagnosed with depression. I realized it was just talking about stories and writing and books. So that's what I tried to do with my Instagram initially. And I did notice that a lot of people that I knew, my friends, they started unfollowing when I would express feelings of sadness or uncertainty or anxiety and so at first I tried to kind of censor myself with that, and I was like, yeah, honey, people are looking at me in a weird way. But the only thing I knew was books and writing, and that's what kept me going. So I thought, chalo, let's just start posting about that. And people started thinking, and they would write back, and they would tell me that, oh, हाँ हमने भी ये book पढ़ी है, and this resonated with me. Yeah, I would see a book post by someone else, like you guys, the three of you, and I would be like, Acha, chalo, this is talking about the thing that I really care about, so let's go explore that. And so that's how it was. I saw myself posting more about books and getting more comfortable with that, but also posting more about my mental health, my just struggles with that, and how I viewed myself. So yeah, that's it.
All of you sort of touched upon this next question, but I think we should also explore it properly. And it's the community on Instagram. I think Madiha and Mariam even talked about this during some Instagram lives we did early on in the lockdown. The feeling of community online on Instagram, the reader community, the writing community. How do you how has your experience been interacting with them? Have you seen it grow over the past few years, and especially now during COVID, have you noticed the reading Instagram community sort of really expand? Yeah, I think the pattern is now there. It's Mariam Matiana.
Thank you very much for asking me the first question. The Instagram community has been great for me. Literally, you're looking at you all I've met through the Instagram community, and it's amazing. And I think my focus then in the beginning, obviously, I wanted to follow as many accounts as I possibly could, and all of that. But then what I started doing was I started curating who I follow also, because I wanted to build closer relationships with a few people as opposed to just superficially like each other's things with like a wide variety of people. So in that way, it's been really nice because I don't know if we would have met in real life. I don't know if we would have, but I'm so glad that we did, and I can't even imagine if we hadn't on Bookstagram, because these are people who I share so much. It's love of reading, of course, is one thing, but it's somehow more than that. The causes that Madiha writes about, the poetry and the feelings and all of that. Now all the stuff that you write about, the sadness and the angst and everything, and everyone can relate to that. And the fact that you write it is it's not just brave, but comforting to so many people, right? Because you read it and you're like, okay, I'm not alone in feeling these not negative thoughts, but like sad thoughts, you know? And so please keep doing that. That's a great service you're doing people. So it's just really nice to meet so many interesting, intelligent people, most of them women, that I wouldn't have been able to meet otherwise. So it's just been amazing for me, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with Mariam and with the community as well. And I think for me, it's more about the kind of people that follow me or whom I follow, and like that I can interact with. And it's not about the numbers, because mera ye hota hai ki, like there's a surge in my followers, and I'm like I just go through them and I start blocking people. Jo
Me too.
trolling, like those sort of people, and I'm like I do not care about the numbers. I just need to get rid of any kind of negative energy, because especially when I write about women, and I don't even write, I don't know, like I don't think that I write really controversial stuff. It's just basic common sense. And that's when the upsurge begins. For example, I think I wrote about men helping out during Eid, or because that's what happens. Women are busy in the kitchen, Bakra Eid pe, Eid pe. And this guy had slid into my DMs, and he's like, yeah, now you're going too far. On earth. So stuff like that. But as far as about when I write about books or reading, so I've become actually friends with a bunch of writers as well. For example, Lauren Elkin, who wrote Flanus. It's pretty famous, I think. So she follows me, I follow her, and like we talk about stuff like this as well. So that's been really good. And I think for some things, for example, like with publishing, certain publishing houses may be following you, like the Harvard University Press or the British Library, or stuff like that. And I think they respond to the normal person enthusiasm about just books, not for any particular brand names, or because I think that's something that's become जैसे एक वो stereotypical influencer बन जाता होता है, तो उसी तरह with the bookstagrammers, which I don't think any of us really call ourselves. तो वो जो एक वो stereotypical सा sort of जो western उसका model बन गया है, those are people just writing raving reviews about popular fiction books, and not really giving honest opinions. So I think keeping that boundary is really important, where your own honesty doesn't get compromised just so you can get free books from publishers, or stuff like that. That, like, I don't like, I can understand that, but I don't think any of us is actually monetizing our accounts in that way. So we don't feel that pressure, because we're just doing it for fun, honestly speaking. So I think वो वाली चीज आ जाती है.
I agree with both of you. I agree. For me, it was just essentially my friends at first, and then even within that, I realized a lot of my friends don't read. Some of you do, I know. But I was like, यार मैं ऐसे लोगों से बात करना चाहती हूँ, engage करना चाहती हूँ जो मेरी तरह books पढ़ रहे हैं, उसके बारे में excited हैं, and that's how I found most of you. And like I started following and then learning things. There were so many things. Like, for example, there's so many books जो मदीहा post करती हैं, and before I knew you, I used to take them down as like, हाँ ये वाली पढ़नी है, ये वाली available है Last Word पे, ये देखते हैं कैसी है. And I didn't know anything about it. Similar, आप दोनों, Arsalan, Aap, and Maria, you guys posted a lot of books that I did not know about, and I was like, "Acha yaar, there are people reading," and if my friends are not, so that's perfectly fine. But it gave me a set of people who felt like me about stories and writing, and so my focus was essentially just engaging with people who felt the same way, and I go through the same thing. What I do is I sometimes make my account private. Then I sort of delete or block people, I'm sorry, who I think are just accounts that I'm not comfortable with, with a lot of selfies and stuff like that. I'm being very judgmental here. I'm so sorry. But I just, I don't feel comfortable because I'm putting so much of myself out there, and I feel insecure about that as well. So for me, it's more that struggle. That's it.
Perfect. I think my next question for you guys is also sort of, now that we're in an age of social media, we have influencers, we have all these different people existing online. And we've also talked about this in other sessions as well. Okay, now the person who writes or the person who has an opinion, even even if you look at non-fiction writers as well, they're on Instagram too. Now that we all use Instagram frequently, we're all on it all the time. How do you think Instagram is changing the way we see ourselves as readers and writers, and how much do we have to exist on that influencer spectrum? Do we have to, or if, are we even on there? Sort of, how much do we have to sell ourselves, essentially? Because our Instagram is our marketing board essentially now.
Yeah, great question.
Mariam?
Okay, yes, I'm starting. I don't consider myself an influencer at all, and I don't think I ever will. I'm not. I'm not on Instagram to influence anyone to like what I like, the books that I like, वगैरह. Just like Nazuk and Vidya was saying, it's just my immediate reaction to books, books that I love, and connecting with other people who love books in general and specifically those books. I think Madhya touched on this a bit about how in the US especially, Bookstagram has become. By the way, I use the hashtag Bookstagram in every book post, so just putting that out there. But yeah, so people in the US are monetizing that, and Bookstagram there is more. It's people with tens and thousands of followers, and publishers send them books which they review, and they either get free books or they even get like paid for it as sponsorship. So I'm not. That's not where I'm headed. And I don't think either Nazuk or Madhya want to particularly do that at all. So I don't know what more to say about this except that I really don't consider myself an influencer.
Yeah, same here. And like I said before, and Dusri cheez, yeah, I don't feel I can actually commit to Instagram that much because I have periods in which I just don't check it. Like
Mhm.
I cannot be bothered. So I don't want the commitment where my entire life revolves. And I think with influencers, the tag, matlab traditionally, although you can't really use traditionally with something like Instagram, but traditionally speaking, a wo cheez ban gayi hui hai कि it's people who bring a lot of their own personal life into
Mhm.
Instagram because वो जो उनकी personal brand है that has a lot to do. मतलब I think even people that we follow and are not really invested in, we just watch their stories, we can tell you a lot about their life. Okay, who they're related to, the kind of parties they have, like every almost like a lot. So I don't feel comfortable putting that much out. और काफी दफा ये चीज होती है कि like you put yourself out थोड़ा सा भी, and the
Mhm.
kind of attention that you get, even if it's positive, it starts making you feel uncomfortable, and फिर आप ज्यादा पीछे हो जाते हो. So I think with that, अगर if that's the model of influencer that you have to bring so much of the personal into it, तो फिर I think it has to be more about, books, etc. And I have written book reviews, like for magazines, etc. So when I started out, so I used to write for this fashion magazine. I think it doesn't really exist anymore. It used to be called Buzz. तो उसके
Mhm.
अंदर ये होता था कि like I won't name who the bookseller was, but they used to send free books to review. अच्छा अब वो obviously since it's fashion magazine और वो chicklit वाली books थी तो एक आध तो मैंने बर्दाश्त कर ली. फिर उसके बाद when I was about to write a very negative review, my editor is like, Madhya, you'll stop sending us books, so please don't. So उसके बाद like the way I found for that was I just went and bought my own books, that at least I could be honest. And I just like skipped the chicklet wali cheese. I started writing more about literary fiction. So that's another balance that matlab I've started writing book reviews for Libas now. So
Mhm.
book is hai, or like for other newspapers as well, op-eds वगैरह. So I like my independence where I can say whatever I want. So as far as the monetization is concerned, so that comes at that cost where you can't have express your own opinions independently.
I agree with both of you. And influencer scares me. That means I have authority on something. I don't think I have an authority on recommending books or stories. I mean, I can share what I personally feel about them, but I can't tell people read James Baldwin because that will get you. Uh, and मुझे थोड़ा सा डर लगता है because there is a sense of responsibility with literature as well.
Mhm.
Uh, and with the title influencer, Joe, a lot of people sort of abuse as well. Then their expectations of say, I just want to stay away from all that. I just
Mhm.
want to talk about stories and books that I love and put them out there just as I feel. मुझसे book reviews नहीं लिखे जाते मुझे आते ही नहीं है. So whenever I just get very excited about it, I just post about it. Oh, ये book पढ़ी और फिर मुझे ये feel हुआ और फिर मैंने ये सोचा, and this is how I connected to my life. So I don't think I even want those numbers. 11,000, 20,000. That's too many people depending on you. So I don't think I want that either. I agree with you.
I think this will be a relatively quicker answer, I think, for everyone. But now that, let's say one day, inshallah, the day comes, we're all published writers and we have books out in the world. One day it'll happen. But once that day comes, do you think, considering how social media is right now, how necessary do you think it is for people who write professionally or as their sole profession, for them to be on social media, be interacting with people? Is it a total necessity, or can you get away with it if you don't want to have that life?
So I think because so many authors are on it. I read somewhere, I'm not sure exactly where, that publishers now do expect authors to do a lot of publicity themselves.
Yeah.
So publicity budgets or whatever, especially for newbies, are sort of not that much, and they do expect you to do a lot. And when I was studying writing, our instructors did tell us that if you submit a book manuscript somewhere, that person who's reading it will Google you for sure, and they'll see your Instagram page or whatever. And they did say that your reach, and if you already have a following, does make a difference. So these are just the practical aspects of like publishing, unfortunately. I don't really think personally that writers need to be on Instagram. I feel like the writers that are publishing books are probably not spending so much time on Instagram. But it is, I think, because social media is not just a separate thing. It's literally like we carry it around with us everywhere, right? So writers are told by publishers to be on social media. And I feel bad because some writers don't, if you're already on it, then it's easier for you to do. But if it's just completely foreign to you, I don't think writers should be asked to like go and jao apna work on social media, because if it's unnatural and foreign to them, then it's not even going to work, you know?
Yeah, I agree with Mariam as well, and I think for like the publishers do this, but counter to that, we have Elena Ferrante, who is one of the most popular writers in the world. Nobody knows who she is. So, well, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if you're really, really good and like publishers are really invested in publishing what you've written, so you might be able to get away with catch theek nahi hai. So yeah.
Hey, but that's a scary thought. They Google you, and then here you have to start censoring yourself and what you feel about certain things. So I don't know how I'll manage that, but I.
Favor also, I'm sorry. It could go in your favor. If I was Googling you now, look, I'd be happy. I'd be like, yeah, I want to publish this girl right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think I think most writers kind of still do need that. Because I remember, I think it might have been the interview that Mariam, you conducted with Uzma Aslam, and perhaps it was Zarar Saeed as well. Both of them did mention something about social media being I've recently started noticing how a lot of writers are posting about their work, Pakistani writers, which is great because they have great work, which was, apart from Mohsin Hamid and Kamila Shamsi, we didn't know much about them, at least regular readers didn't. And so they're bringing that out to like platforms like Instagram, and a lot of people are engaging because of that. And it's kind of nice because I know what Uzma Aslam was referring to when she was talking about a certain thing while she was writing about it. That sort of connections are nice to make and sort of understand and engage with them. So I think that's sort of necessary. But then you just gave an example of Elena Ferrante, and that also works. So I think I'm pretty confused on this question.
I think one of the really nice things actually about this is that the distance between the writer and the reader has just shrunk so much on Instagram. That can be a really amazing thing. Like I mentioned with DMing writers and then replying to them. So they're so accessible now. I don't know if that's such a good thing, and not every writer wants to be accessible, which is fine. But if you wanted to engage with readers without that sort of publisher and without those very formal book launches and all of this stuff where, you know, one person, so in that way, if that's something that you want, I think it could be really nice.
But there's
Yeah.
another thing as well that I think this is, this requirement feeds into that whole thing where, you have to be likable, because someone might be an amazing writer and just have no social skills at all. So I think it's kind of unfair because, for example, I love A.A. Gill. He's passed away now, but I think he was so rude that if you put him on social media, I think, it would have been a disaster for his writing by linking those two things. So yeah, I think Nazok might have started reading the book as well, because yeah, I remember we went to the last word and I was reading passages out to her. So वो वाली चीज है, because there's this essay that he wrote about Priyanka Chopra that I minded at the time, I don't anymore, about the kind of stuff that he said about her. And that's the kind of stuff that would have just landed him in hot water and given the kind of cancel culture we have now. तो उसको उन्होंने बिल्कुल ही कह देना था कि इसकी चीजें पढ़े ही कोई ना, जबकि the other stuff that he's written is brilliant. And not just funny wala brilliant, but it's about the damages of big pharma and the experimentation in Africa, and like a lot of really really good things that needed to be said. He used to write for the Guardian and Vanity Fair and the Tatler as well. So वो वाली चीज है, but I don't know, the whole way this culture and this whole social media thing is, it really doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah, again, it's like two sides of the same coin. It's what the writer wants at the end of the day. Elena Ferrante can do it and get away with it. We'd all still buy her books. But of course, if you're a smaller writer, your first time, you might want to do that. So again, it's sort of like it depends on you as the person getting published at the end of the day. There is one really interesting, actually, there are a couple of really interesting questions, all of a sudden. So I will read out two of them. The first one is, any advice for people who are thinking of sharing their love for reading on social media, things you wish you had known, and how do you keep it from becoming an endless rabbit hole that takes up a lot of your time and energy?
I'm actually this one also for it. The first one, advice about if you want to write about books, the first thing I want to tell you is to be honest. It goes a long way in creating your own sort of credibility on the thing. And if you don't like a book, you don't have to post about it, but then don't rave about it either. So just be honest and focus less on what the book is about or what the book says about, our current social situation, all that, and just tell us how you felt about it. That's all we really want to know, because those reviews are there in newspapers and in magazines, those fancy reviews. Instagram is the one place where you can just be very personal. So I would want to know what you felt about this book, what it reminded you of, what it made you think of, how it made you feel. So focus on these things, because the summaries are there. Anyone can Google the book and see what it's about, but that is what we want to know. And the other thing, the rabbit hole thing, I don't have an answer because if you have any suggestions on that, let me know. One thing that I do is that I keep my phone physically away from me. I need to do that now. It's really bad. And I put a timer on it. So, I keep 1 hour or 2 hours. And unless the timer goes off, I'm not going to go and sort of pick up my phone. So that's worked for me so far. And abhi sirf ghanta maine kiya, but I'm hoping to increase the time more also.
Yeah, I agree with Mariam as well, especially about the honesty thing, about what you think. And I think another thing to look out for is to not be influenced to, हम influencer बनना चाहते हैं, influence होना नहीं चाहते उतने ज़्यादा, to be very honest. But, to not be influenced into doing exactly the same thing that other, more influential sort of people are doing. So, don't write about the same sort of books or anything, just do what you want. Because I think, just say, like for example, matlab with me, most people post about fiction. Okay, and I just started reading non-fiction a lot. Like I have a degree in English, and it just came to a saturation point where thak karke I just stopped reading fiction altogether for a few years. So I love non-fiction, and I don't know, it gets a bad rap, to be very honest. But I didn't let that stop me. I just went with my gut, wrote more about it, got more people interested. कि नहीं पढ़ के तो देखो, like don't believe the stereotypes that people tell you. So वो वाली चीजें, so just do your own thing. Just write or read whatever you want. If someone tells you, oh my God, young adult fiction is so stupid, don't believe them. It's your enthusiasm that counts. Of anything. Especially, और हम लोगों का especially अब this thing is changing. with about Urdu fiction or in your own local languages, etc. But we've seen a lot of snobbery, where I think even when we were in school, I think we're the same generation, all three of us at least, कि उस वक्त बहुत ज़्यादा ये वाली चीज़ थी कि भाई हमारे बच्चे को तो इंग्लिश आती है, उर्दू तो ही कांट रीड और राइट इंग्लिश, और ओ लेवल्स के अंदर भी पीपल वर लाइक, ओ हम तो इजी उर्दू पढ़ेंगे, तो वो वाली चीज़ थी. अब दैट्स चेंजिंग. People are coming towards their own local languages as well. So if you want to read that, write about it, please just go for it. So वो वाली चीज़ है. And as far as the rabbit hole is concerned, Mariam वाली बात सही है. I think I need to do the timer thing as well, really. Because if I stop Instagram, I'll be like, अच्छा चलो Twitter पे check कर लेते हैं. So no. Like I really need to stop. So yes, वो चीज़ है.
इरफान, एक दफा क्वेश्चन फिर से रिपीट करो क्योंकि मुझे अजान ने थोड़ा सा वो कर दिया तो मेरा.
Sure. So basically, they're asking what tips you have for someone who wants to write about their love for reading on social media. And the second part of their question is, how do you stop yourself from falling down the rabbit hole of the internet?
I guess Mariam and Madiha talked about bilkul sahi yahi wali baatein hain, so I'm not going to be repeating that. For me, I think just as Mariam said, be honest, talk about how it resonated with you, and same with what Madiha said. I'm not going to, I don't think I have advice for that. Just go with it. If you really like a book, if you like 50 Shades, write about it. It's okay. It's really fine. If you like Twilight and it works for you, great. You're reading. I was pretty much a snob when it came to ये क्या अभी जो 40 Rules of Love निकली थी, and Imran Khan ने वो की, and I was like, क्या यार ये इतनी बेकार किताब है. पहले I was being pretty snobby about it with my friends, and then I realized he's recommending books. There's nothing wrong with that. ठीक है, I might not like them, some people might. And who am I to even judge इसके बारे में? So yeah, write about whatever you like. मुझे बहुत embarrassing books भी पसंद है, बहुत सारी, and मैं उनके बारे में post भी करती हूँ. So rabbit hole का यही है कि I feel like I can't stop myself. I really can't. I have to post कुछ ना कुछ, especially when I'm working. You would see like 5 different posts उसी दिन जिस दिन report due होगी, because that's my way of focusing. And same with when I'm feeling a certain way about myself, about my looks or about anything, I would post a picture where I feel like I've dressed up. So that's something that I need to address personally, but I think that's something that I need to find a balance with. Perhaps with a timer, yeah, I guess. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I think the rabbit hole.
Another thing that I wanted to add was that with a lot of people, I think people get intimidated by somebody else के यार वो तो इतनी ज़्यादा books पढ़े and I'm not reading enough. So I think we really need to normalize not reading for months on end, because and it's not about oh my god कोई कितना, like there used to be this snobbery as well कि जी like someone who's reading would make other people feel bad sometimes. I think we really need to be over that, because everyone has such busy lives. And I think COVID has made us realize the importance of mental health as well. Okay, sometimes you're just not in the frame of mind to read. Matlab, it's happened to me ke months on end I haven't read or finished at least a single book, or I'm reading articles or anything. Matlab, people can be going through so many things. Perfectly fine to not read, not post. So we shouldn't really, nobody should put pressure on themselves. I have to post something, or just keep reading or something. Matlab, just do you wala scene.
Exactly.
I agree with you so much, because sometimes within the Bookstagram community, I'm looking at these people who are like a pile of 7-8 books, month reading wrap. I'm like, what, you read 7? What? How is that even possible? Because honestly, like, please don't think that just because I'm posting about books, I'm just reading all the time and I have these like 6, 7, 8 books per month. Not at all. Like I read. Sometimes I'll read 0, sometimes I'll read 3. It varies. So that's a really important point. I wouldn't want someone going through my thing thinking, oh my God, she reads so much and I wish I read more. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I do. And that's a really important disclaimer to make. So thanks.
I agree. Same with me. I have not been able to complete most books that I started this year. I get intimidated by the fact that people would say I've read around 60 books this year. I was aiming for 80. And
I
then
don't
it's like
set self challenges, dude. Like my Goodreads का वो देखती हूँ, I'm like, nah, sorry, मैं नहीं कुछ set करी goal. And another thing, And I think this is a public service message to everyone, because this happened to me a few days ago. Please do not give people spoilers. Somebody slid into my DMs and gave me a spoiler for the book I just started reading. I
That's not
was like,
spoiler,
ye kya
that's
hai?
That's not
Like,
cool.
kya tha?
Not
Like, it's never happened to me before. I haven't heard of it happening to anyone. Like, and I remember chote hote somebody gave me a spoiler for an Agatha Christie book, and I cried for 2 days. My parents were like, "What is wrong with you?" But you please no, it's a very very like hard boundary to cross nahi karni.
Huh,
Please.
I agree.
I feel like generally in life, the book spoiler rule has stayed intact.
I swear.
The only time I broke it was the last Harry Potter book for uske baad I said, "Oh, bye, bye."
Well,
Yeah,
that's terrible though. Like,
yeah. I still feel bad for my sister to this day, but uske baad मैंने कभी नहीं किया.
उस तरह की books तो I just make a point to read them, सबसे पहले, like I'll shut myself in the bathroom if I have to like avoid people until I finished it. Okay, no, please don't come near me.
yeah.
We have an interesting question, and it comes with a disclaimer: कि please don't roll your eyes at this question. And the question is, do you fear? Does the fear of nazar ever stop you from posting on Instagram, or stop you from posting certain types of pictures or content?
No, I'm not gonna roll my eyes. But yeah,
Maybe
we've had.
I don't post personal pictures, but during my private account, I've been told many times. I only post to my daughter. Basically, I've been told many times, that I shouldn't do it. Nazar wagera. But Madhya, I think you should answer this one.
Oh, guys, like it's now obvious है.
No, because you post about pictures of yourself. That's the only reason I'm saying it.
Yeah, nahi, posting pictures, that's I think one of the reasons that I don't post pictures of myself or anything. And I think it kind of fueled that whole thing, because I was in England for a year for my masters. And I think that's the prime opportunity to post a lot of pictures bahar ki, and like really good pictures, etc., to increase your following. And I didn't. मतलब क्योंकि मेरा especially personally ये होता है कि I was traveling a lot, and I have a proper like an icon, and I take pictures and they're really nice. But the point is कि मुझे for me to actually absorb an experience takes a long time. Like I cannot post while something is happening. जैसे लोगों का होता है ना कि they'll be posting pictures from the same day of having dinner or lunch and stuff like that. I can't do that. तो अब इसी वजह से I think it's very confusing sometimes for people कि मतिया तुम हो कहाँ पे, because I'll just be posting pictures from years ago, honestly speaking, because I remember when I was at Civil Services Academy, I used to take photographs a lot, and my batchmates are still like, "वो 7 साल पुरानी pictures नहीं मिली हैं अभी तक," a bunch of them. So for me, nazar se bhi zyada, like just some experiences are too personal, so I just won't write about them. I think I didn't post a single picture from my wedding last year, kuch bhi nahi. तो नजर वाली चीज भी है, but more about it being more of a personal thing, which is why I'm like, nah, I don't want to share it.
Yeah.
So वो चीज भी है थोड़ी सी.
I mean, I do share a lot of photos with my friends and of myself on it. Initially, I was not scared of the whole nazar factor too much, even though my family believes in it. There was a point where I started noticing how people were talking about me in a certain way, and it would get back to me. They would say things like, "और कितनी देर रहेगी वहाँ पे?"
Exactly, same. Yeah.
इसके साथ पोस्ट कर रही है, कितनी देर, इसके पेरेंट्स किस तरह अफोर्ड कर रहे हैं. When it started getting personal like that, what does her father do? There have been comments where people would focus on my family, and these are people that I knew, and so that started getting to me. Maybe I was curating this sort of an image वहाँ पे इस platform पे कि ओह मैं तो सब कुछ दुनिया का enjoy कर रही हूँ और मेरी तो जिंदगी बहुत happening है और मेरे parents तो बस सब कुछ afford कर सक रहे हैं. That's not true. There were struggles which I obviously didn't talk about because either I didn't know how to address them or I didn't want to. And so that became a factor because of which I started limiting myself and how I was posting about myself. So yeah, nazar to nahi, lekin this लोगों की बातें gets to me, but I'm sure nazar bhi hai. My mom believes in that. So
Yeah.
I'm not pulling my eyes at that at all. Good question.
Yeah, none of us are rolling our eyes. I think we all at some level believe in Nazar. I do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know, Nazuk is right because this has happened to me personally as well. Even like without Instagram or anything, where people will ask you personally, ke, oh, how come you have this or how come you've been here, and you know stuff like that. So it kind of makes you uncomfortable as well. काफी दफा होता है कि you know you're in that really revolting वाली feeling as well कि where you're like कि जी I don't care, I'll just do what I want. तो वो थोड़ी देर तो that adrenaline or that thing keeps you going, but then sometimes you crash completely where you're like yeah matlab it's too much sometimes. So वो चीज है, and the personal comments etc they really do get to you. Nazuk is perfectly right.
Okay. So I think this will be the last question. I think it's a good question to end on as well. Um, how do you feel about a book that suddenly becomes a Bookstagram favorite and it's all over your feed? Do you feel the pull to set aside the books you're reading or the books in your reading list and pick up the trending book?
For me, it's interestingly the opposite. If I see a
Mm-hmm.
book is plastered everywhere, I don't know what it is. It's a thing that I have to like not do what everyone's doing. It goes back a long
Yeah.
time. That's something for another talk. So if some book is everywhere, even if I will actually really like it, and maybe I will, it doesn't mean it's a bad book, right? If everybody's liking it, doesn't mean that it could actually mean people are reading it and really enjoying it. But I get a bit put off by it, or फिर मैं इसको नहीं पढ़ती. Like it's a silly thing, but obviously I will. Some of them are amazing, like Homegoing, for example, was a book that was everywhere on Bookstagram, but it's a brilliant, amazing book. So it doesn't mean the book is not good, but I'll wait, and then when it dies down a bit, then I might read it. Because it's hard not to get influenced by that whole euphoria about the books when you're reading it. So I'd rather sort of let that die down and then just read it and see what I really think about it.
Yeah, mine is the same as Mariam's, and I think it's improved over the years. But especially when I was younger, I used to get so cheesed off that I would be like, "नहीं पढ़नी." And उसके अंदर नहीं, and उसके अंदर मेरी like I'm so glad that मेरी थोड़ी सी इस चीज में बचत होगी when it came to Harry Potter, because my dad went to the Frankfurt Book Fair and he got me the third part when it wasn't available in Pakistan. Like nobody had heard of it then. तो इस वजह से मैंने वो पढ़ ली, and I'm so glad because the kind of hype that came with Harry Potter afterwards, I wouldn't have read it even now because I would just have been like नहीं मैंने नहीं पढ़नी. I would have just gotten so irritated कि मैं ना पढ़ती. तो वो उसके अंदर I'm really glad that you know वो चीज हो गई. But now honestly speaking with certain books I think when you're younger the kind of books that are famous होती भी उस तरह की हैं जिस तरह मतलब वो popular fiction या you know YA वाली. Now maybe because of you know the kind of people that we follow and whose opinion that we actually hear, उनके बारे में I don't really get that irritated because I respect their opinion कि हाँ इनको पसंद है तो चलो try करते हैं. तो वो वाली चीज़ है जैसे मरियम about Homegoing, I've seen her post about it. Yeah, with we need new stories be I think. So you know like a few books that I know, like आपको honestly speaking the people that you know or are friends with उनकी आपको याद रह जाती है कि अच्छा इसको वो वाली book पसंद आई थी. So with that I wouldn't get irritated because you know it's someone whose opinion I actually trust.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, same as you too. For me, I'm a mood reader. I don't know if that's even a term, because I'm very moody as to what I'm feeling about a certain thing at a certain point. If, for example, I have not read Sally Rooney's Normal People yet because it was viral everywhere, and I really want to read it, and I've heard great things about it. लेकिन I was like, नहीं यार, एक तो सब इसके बारे में बोल रहे हैं अभी मुझसे, मैं अपना mind मेकअप करना चाहती हूँ इस चीज के बारे में. And so it's also like day to day my mood changes about what I want to read. You know that there's a clip in Gilmore Girls, जहाँ पे she's packing up for I think school, and so her mother takes out the books and she's like कि तुम्हें essays भी चाहिए, short stories भी चाहिए, poetry भी चाहिए, ये सारा कुछ तुम किस तरह लेके जाओगे? And I'm sorry for like ruining the entire scene like and not explaining it too well. Lekin I can relate to that. When I'm packing up to go somewhere, कपड़ों से ज़्यादा मुझे books की tension होती है. मुझे ये tension है ना? I need to have my essays, कोई ना कोई essay collection Gia Tolentino रखनी है. देखो अभी हो सकता है मेरा mood हो जाए. And then poems. Obviously I need my Faiz and my Ghalib. थोड़ा सा हो सकता है कि वो moment आ जाए, दिल करे, और होता भी है. I look for books in my bag उस point पे and I'd be like ये क्यों नहीं रखी? ये मुझे याद आ रही है. So for me, it's always about, I get the books that I really want, and that's why I have this. I'm broke all the time. I have so many books that I've not read. Lekin, I get them, and there's a moment to that I've kind of realized. I'll make this short, but I've realized sometimes I would walk into a bookstore, I won't know what I really want, or I would know, then I would come across this book, and it's really strange, but it's like it calls out to you. It really does. You just know you've read that title before. Aapne dekha hai ke pehle hai, but this time it just calls out to you. It connects with you, and that's when you pick it up and you're like, "Ha, aaj hai iska, bas like time hai iska." So I'm just gonna buy it and I'm gonna read it. So that's what works for me.
Like another thing that I'd like to add, especially about the books that actually go viral. Unfortunately, पाकिस्तान का बहुत मसला ये है कि यहाँ बुक्स मिलती नहीं आसानी से. मतलब लाहौर is only left with 2 bookshops now. तो उनके वायरल होने का नुकसान ये होता है कि people who are not going to read it for years or ever just end up buying them, and जिन्होंने actually पढ़नी होती है वो बैठे हुए देख रहे होते हैं कि यार मिलेगी कहाँ से. So I think, and this happened, or this actually came to a head during COVID, when the last one, for example, got 2 deliveries. तो उसके अंदर I think a lot of us just actually, it was a competition कि यार बस ले लो, like literally you're cursing yourself. You're like यार अच्छा ठीक है कहीं और से सस्ती मिल जाती. By the time I was going to get around to actually reading it, but वो actually वो panic इतना ज़्यादा हुआ. It's a very strange phenomenon. मतलब I'm guilty of it as well. I think I blew an entire month's salary जो कि मैंने पिछले 3 महीनों से कुछ भी नहीं लिया था. Like I wasn't online shopping, I wasn't doing anything. I was actually doing what my mom tells me to do, कि just reading the books that I have, कि चलो पढ़ तो लो at least, खत्म करो. तो वो मैं कर रही हूँ, and then we just like broke all our resolutions and went and bought so many books. तो वो वाली चीज बहुत हुई है, and I think Pakistan really needs to have more people who read, ताकि it's actually profitable to have books all the time, कि आप फिर सुकून से at your own pace get around to those books, read them. जैसे I think, and you do miss out, and that's something that's fueling into our use of Instagram as well, that you can't take a break because of the stuff that you'll miss out on. For us, people who read or write, it's actually books. जैसे अब मुझे याद है मरियम when she talked about home going, उससे पहले I'd heard of it and everything. फिर मुझे जब तक by the time, because of Mariam, I wanted to read it, I couldn't find it. Then I'm like यार मतलब जब मिल रही थी मैं ले ही लेती. So it's a very weird sort of cycle where you just have to be on top of stuff all the time and just preempt your future self wanting something. But yeah, now I'm running out of space as well, so yeah.
And broke all the time. Yeah.
My shelf is like, okay, browsing my shelf, what should I read today? What should I read? And the thing that you said about traveling now is that mera ye hota hai, if I'm taking a new book, it's such a risk, because what if you go there and you're sitting on your holiday or wherever, and you open it and like, oh no, this is not the right book that I. So taking new books is a very big risk on holidays. So I would suggest starting something and then sort of continuing that.
Yeah.
Great tips, you guys. But thank you so much for this great conversation. I think we all had a lot of fun with this talk. And again, thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who's listening.
Thank you.
Really.
And hopefully we will all meet soon once that things get a bit better.
Definitely do that.
Yeah. And yeah, so thank you so much. And we're going to sign off. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.